Greetings. Welcome to Don't Mess with the Mamas. I'm Johnny Mitchell. I'm here with Elena Black. And today we are going to talk about fear, life's zapper. This is something that everybody experiences at one time or another, or maybe even often. Fear. It's natural, it's normal, it can be our best friend or our worst enemy. We are going to cover what it is, and then next week we will cover how to cope and overcome the negative aspects of fear. Elena, are you with me? And are you ready to talk about the lesson of fear and its implications?
Yes, thank you so much. Fear, wow, that's a biggie. That's what everybody struggles with, or even little insects that don't want to be squashed. So fear is at the bottom of everything. And of course, fear, we must have some level of fear. Gosh, without fear, then how can you protect yourself? So definitely it's a positive. However, if your fear is so powerful that it's causing so much anxiety, especially fear of death. And fear of death leads to so much negativity in life. Even, and I'll come back to this, even racism, fear of living your life, fear of success. Because when you fear death, you may be paralyzed, and you may even develop OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or PTSD, or just afraid of doing anything. So when I was little, and I expressed this in the very beginning of our episodes, I was supposed to die, actually. I wasn't supposed to make it to my first birthday. When I was 7 months old, I had 107 temperature. And it left me with a heart problem. And I had to go to the hospital many times throughout my childhood and get what's called cardiocatheterizations to see if I needed open heart surgery, which I later found out I did when I was 30 years old by accident. But I don't know, somehow that left me with a feeling of death is the inspiration of life. I kind of always instinctively felt that. And when I had to face my own death, the possibility of my own death, having open heart surgery, feeling totally fine, that's when I had to really overcome, that tremendous fear of death. But fear of death means that we don't understand life's eternity. And whatever your belief system, if you can really open up your minds and hearts to the idea that life is in fact eternal, and that we go through cycles of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and that we keep on going and going and going and going. And of course, many of you have had, or all of us, I think, have had the experience of what we like to call deja vu. It's a term that, means that you're remembering something from the past that just doesn't sync up with this lifetime. And I know when I went to Africa many years ago, and this was really bizarre, Jewish girl from Brooklyn, when the plane landed, I said, home at last after all these years. And it was just, what did I just say? It was just like something that came out of my life. I felt so at home there. And again, I know many of you share these experiences, but the negative aspects of fear, and I think fear of the unknown, that's why we kind of put ourselves in boxes. We don't want to explore other people, especially if we're of different color or different social status or different nationality or whatever it is. It's that fear of the other. Why? Why are we fearing the other? So there's something we really need to look at in our own lives, why we fear. Is there a desire to be superior to others because it's like a way of holding on to your own life? Or a way to put, I don't even know where that comes from, but I know that fear can also manifest as fear of success. Fear of failure, certainly, we all know what that means, but fear of success is another one, means taking on a lot more responsibility. So at the basis of so much of our life is fear, and my own fears I'll talk about a little bit later on in this program. But Johnny, what are your experiences with fear? Or I know you've had some experiences in your own family of, the possibility of young people facing death. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or just your own fears, or anything you want to share about what we just said.
Thank you for this opportunity, Alina. Fear. I hadn't thought much about fear until we were preparing for this program today. I definitely would say that I have never experienced a conscious fear of death or dying. And now that I think about it, I think that death would be a motivating factor for me in the way I live my life. It's that we all know that we have this birth and then death for this time here. And so it's the dash in between.
Yes.
And so that's what makes me want to use every minute of that dash to enjoy this experience. And then we don't know, nobody knows when that will end. So it's equal opportunity for everybody. It's not
Yes.
going to just happen to me. It's like everybody is going to experience that end of the dash. And so that part of it. But I have experienced other fears. And I'd just like to, I guess, repeat what you said about the two different kinds of fears. Some fears we have to have or we wouldn't exist because as we teach children about not touching a hot stove or not
Absolutely.
running in front of a car. So we have to be cognizant at all times of fears that are rational and good for our preservation and to continue experiencing our wonderful life. But it's the problematic fears, the fears that, and this might sound funny, and I'd like to hear your experience, and for those of you who are listening, the thing that I remember about or know about my fears, they never happen.
Oh,
If you
yes.
understand all of the things, upcoming event, and I think of might happen and that might happen, and the list of things. And none of those things usually happen at all. It's like, so it's really a waste of time. I spend all that anxiety and whatever you would call it, just misery. And usually, even if it doesn't turn out exactly positive, it's never that I was able to envision the correct things to be fearful of. So it's a
Absolutely.
waste of time. And so that's what I've learned about fear. And I'm glad that we are breaking this up into two parts. So today we're talking about what fear is and the bad things about fear and how it can impede our progress and keep us from doing or trying new things. And then the next time going into getting the courage to overcome our fears.
Yes.
So, about fears, I was thinking that probably the most famous quote about fear is from our president in the past, Franklin D. Roosevelt, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I think that he summed it all up. And that was a dark time for America during the Depression. It was like everybody was afraid of starvation, for themselves, the country. It was just a dire time. But his thinking, or what he presented to the people, that's the only thing that we have to fear, is fear, because it can stifle our being able to find ways of coping, because it's like the brain shuts out all the positive things you can do if you let
Yes.
the fear take control. And you mentioned something about fear of success, and I've always felt that I suffer from that. Could you speak some more about that? What are your thoughts of fear of success, and how does it manifest or look like? So I'll know whether I have it or not.
And I think everybody has that. We're sort of programmed. It's like ants on a picnic. You know that they're going to come, but bringing the sun out is a whole other story. And I think that fear of failure is there because we're almost programmed to say, I'm no good. I can't do this. I can't do that. And not really using our potential. So success means when you really fight to see what you're capable of doing, that you don't even know you're capable of doing, when you really have the courage to say, I'm going to go for this, I'm going to go for the gusto, even though there's nothing about me that says I should be successful in this, that's when, you can really break through. However, once you're successful in some way, it's a whole lot of other things that you're responsible for. So, I said, well, I certainly don't want to do the lottery because I don't want to have that responsibility of all that money, right? Or responsibility of fame, or responsibility of always performing well. I'd much rather be in the background. So I think that that's really part of it. Fear of success takes on a whole other, opens up a whole world that we're not really used to. So I think maybe that's part of it. And I think also fear of the unknown. That's such a big thing. I often jokingly say, and I guess I'm a little bit nutso this way, but, we call, certainly I think we believe that there is life on other planets, right? And I think science is, so every day they're discovering new things. Just today I was reading in the paper how they're seeing that there's another planet that has very similar atmosphere to Earth's, right? So we call them aliens. And we're like immediately, all these movies about shooting and killing them, why? Why do we fear? I said, bring them on. I mean, they may, hopefully we would be able to converse in some way. But I say it would be so cool to meet something from another planet instead of always thinking negative. But I think people really fear the unknown. And that's why they don't want diversity in their life. Instead of like being excited about meeting a new person who's totally different from you in every which way, people want to stick to their own, and preserve their own kind. What is that? What is your own kind anyway, right? That's kind of nuts. So when you think about it, I want to, stick to my, I just want to stay, traditionally and stay this way and that way. How boring and how, unhuman, really, because humans are meant to explore. Humans are social, as you said, and Aristotle said humans are social animals, so we should want to explore different people, different cultures, different every aspect, But you also spoke about fear in a very real way, that the saddest thing I think that we have is when you have a child and you don't know how you're going to feed that child, or you're living in a place where there's war and you don't know if you're going to survive or if your children are going to survive. And that's a real fear, and that should not exist in humanity. We should not have that kind of fear. That is a real fear of, your impending doom. But everything else, I think, we can challenge and overcome. I know I have a fear of driving because, first of all, I have no sense of direction. And when I got my license, I was always going up one-way streets the wrong way. And I can't really tell when I look back which lane a person is in. So I'm not really good on the road. That is my one fear that I really marvel at. Like you were saying, how you were driving since you were very young. And I think, wow, those people are amazing. But is there anything that I said or any kind of silly fear that you have that, or fear of success? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
The thought that came to mind while you were talking, as well as I was chuckling about what you're saying about fear, is that how much of fear we teach our children.
Yes.
And that that's another aspect of fear. It's a learned condition.
Yes.
And that is probably one of the very significant part of our program, as we're talking about taking charge of our own life, is that we have to be aware of what we are teaching our children about fear, because we are impeding their progress, I believe, in a lot of aspects. And again, about telling them to fear people who do not look like them, or do not go to the same country club that they do. And there are these fears that they pick up because children do not learn most of their things by what we tell them, but it's what they see us do.
Yes.
And how our lives are. And so they are picking up everything from us as adults. We have to always be aware that we are teaching, even though we are not consciously teaching them these things. And there are things that some kids are out here fearing that others are embracing. And those children are benefiting by not having those fears as obstacles or shackles on their life, because they're limited by, I can't do that, or I can't do this, I can't do that because this. And that's an aspect that we really could take a look at and honor and try to come up. And hopefully in the next segment of this, we will talk about some of those things for parents.
Yes. I love what you said about, fear is learned. When a baby is born, it's not like they might have an instinctual fear of not getting enough, food. I don't know if the baby has such a feeling, but as long as they're nurtured and taken care of, if they're not, then they will grow up with a lot of distorted thinking, for sure. So absolutely all of what you said, but mostly it's, if we could challenge the fears, the fears that we don't really need to have, as you said, nothing to fear but fear itself. And I love what Eleanor Roosevelt said. It's only when you could look fear in the face and say, if I can live through that, a difficult situation, I could live through anything. And that's when you really grow as a human being. I was scared to death when I had my open heart surgery because I just didn't know if I would ever wake up. But because I had to face that, then I gained so much more confidence. And that's what happens when you really deal with a difficult situation. You gain so much more confidence. And as you said, sometimes we don't even know, we're just kind of, have all this anxiety. This is going to happen and this is going to happen. And then why did you waste all that time? And that's, as human beings, that's what we do. We are programmed, of course. Fear is a healthy and natural aspect, as long as we control the fear and use it in a positive way and not allow it to control us. And for those folks, and I just read about this, for those leaders or people who are very wealthy who want to live to 200 years old, forget about it. Life is eternal. Stop trying to continue your life. You want to be an old, sagging prune? That's ridiculous. You have no idea that life continues this lifetime, next lifetime, again and again and again. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. But Johnny, anything else you want to add before you give us our points?
We're going to wrap this up, and I will end with some key points from this episode and some encouraging words, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The key points from this are just a few. Embrace the good aspects of fear. Use it to propel your growth and development, and learn the difference between good fears and negative fears. And for encouraging words, I'd like to end with this. Viewing events and situations in a positive light is important. The strength, wisdom, and cheerfulness that accompany such an attitude lead to happiness. To regard everything in a positive light or with a spirit of goodwill, however, does not mean being foolishly gullible and allowing people to take advantage of your good nature. It means having the wisdom and perception to actually move things in a positive direction by seeing things in their best light, while all the time keeping your eyes firmly focused on reality. And that is the end of our episode today. A reminder of our motto: you are the protagonist and not the victim of your life. And until next time, you can find us at Don't Mess with the Mamas at Libsyn, or on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we would love to hear from you at email mamas, MOMMAS .podcast@gmail.com. Until the next time, we love you and we look forward to meeting with you next week. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
Elena.
Bye-bye. Bye, Johnny. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.